So back, you're at Harvard, you're building this program, and you have a summer off. You decide to come out to California. Like, did you plan to stay, and what was it like? Was it exhilarating being out here?
So the game plan was just to come out for the summer to hang out, right? So I was in school freshman year, and I actually stayed in Cambridge between summer, freshman and sophomore year. So then by the end of sophomore year, it's like, all right, like, you want to go somewhere different this summer. And I had been out over winter break just to visit a friend who went to Stanford. And I was like, all right, this is so cool. I just remember like the first time that I was driving down from SFO to Stanford on 101, you like pass all these companies, you're like, whoa, this is awesome. Like, you don't get that in the New York suburbs where I grew up. And I remember thinking, I want to spend some time out here so I can learn from these companies. And I remember explicitly at the time being like, maybe one day I'll build a startup and I'll want to move out here. But like at the time it was just like, okay, I want to go out there for the summer because this is a fun thing to do. And this was still in the project phase of Facebook. And so a bunch of my roommates came out with me and we were hanging out and it was a pretty fun summer. But then we realized that it was really difficult to scale Facebook from kind of getting it started to, I think it was around maybe 30,000 users by the time that we finished sophomore year. And I mean, at the time I was taking like operating systems and algorithms and like just a bunch of like pretty difficult CS classes. So scaling Facebook and taking that at the same time was fairly challenging. And I just remember this conversation that we all had around our dining room table. It was like, okay, so we're setting up a data center out here. We are going to go into the school year with 150,000 users and hopefully grow a lot more. Can we really handle a full course load? Probably not, so let's take one term off. Right, and that was the game plan. We're like, all right, we'll take a term off. And then we took a term off and we didn't really hire anyone. We basically still, we rented a house, kind of hung out in that house and coded for a while. We did start talking to Peter Thiel and raise money from him, but we're very clear that we weren't sure if we were going to stay out here or what we were going to do. And it was just going well, and it kept on growing, and then we decided to take another term off, and then we decided to take a year off, and then it's basically like, all right, I guess we're not coming back. But it was never like some master plan or anything like that, right? So I don't know. I just think that underscores that if you just like work on stuff that you like and you're passionate about it, then if it's going well, you can like. You don't have to have some master plan for how things are going to play out. Right? I mean, the conversation that you were just referencing with Ron Conway, I think, is interesting because, I mean, that was like my wildest dream was like maybe one day this thing could reach like 300 million users. But the thing that's interesting is how soon the long term is, right? Because, I mean, I don't know when I met Ron Conway, but I mean, it could have been more than 4 years ago. Right, so the fact that like the world changed that much in that period of time, and now, you know, I bet when we had that conversation, I don't remember it, so it's hard to say this definitively, but like, I would have guessed that probably 300 million was like decades out, or like something really long, right? So I think if you just stay with something that you like, then you don't have to like plan everything out up front. You can just kind of keep on going and getting to the next level.
Were your parents bummed that you were
So after I decided that I kind of it was highly unlikely that I was going to go back. I remember this conversation. I was with my younger sister and my parents, and my mom was like, "Actually, I knew that you were going to drop out of college." I was like, "Thanks." In fact, I didn't expect my mom to say that, but before I started college, my younger sister made a bet with me that she would finish college before me. So, I owe her $50.
Okay, 2 more questions, then we'll open it up to the audience. So Ron also asked the audience how many of you have seen The Social Network, and most people have. So, I haven't seen it, but I wanted to ask you, if that's the picture that people have in their head about what happened at Facebook, what's the real difference? What is the biggest difference about what actually happened?
Where do you want to start?
One of the biggest ones.
I mean, I don't know. It's interesting what stuff they focused on getting right. Like every single shirt and fleece that I had in that movie is actually a shirt and fleece that I own. actually most thematically interesting that they got wrong is and the whole framing of the movie, kind of the way that it starts is, I'm with this girl who doesn't exist in real life, who dumps me, which has happened in real life a lot. And basically they frame it as if the whole reason for making Facebook and building something was because I wanted to get girls or wanted to get into some kind of social institution. And I mean, the reality for people who know me is I've actually been dating the same girl since before I started Facebook, so obviously that's not a part of it. But I think it's such a big disconnect from, I think, the way that people who make movies think about what we do in Silicon Valley, building stuff. Right? Like, they just can't wrap their head around the idea that someone might build something because they like building things.
Psychology courses in college, right?
Yeah, it was actually, yeah.
I want to know what's something that you learned in your psych class that was useful in the world.
Yeah. The biggest thing that I took away from the psychology classes that I took were how little we know about how the human brain works. I mean, literally, it's like, I think that our understanding of the brain is kind of like if you opened up a computer and we're like, oh, when you're typing this command, this part gets warm. So it's interesting. Like, I think, I mean, it's like you read these studies where it's like, oh, some guy got a steel rod put through his head and like this function stopped, and you said, okay, like we understand nothing, right? So there are all these things that people say. I think like AI is a really interesting field, right? And one of the things that's really interesting as technology is getting better is we're able to build computer systems that can help people think, right? So now I think that the best solutions to a large class of problems are ones where humans do the thinking that they're best at, and we can get computers to do the thinking that computers are tuned for, right? In terms of just really kind of large-scale computation, deterministic, linear, things like that. Where was I going with this? So, there's this whole movement in the Valley, right, around, it's like, okay, processors are getting so much faster, right, if we're going to continue going at this rate for just maybe 10 or 20 more years, and we're going to get computers that are smarter than humans, right? And, I don't buy it. And the reason why I don't is not because I don't think computers are going to be as fast as people think, it's because I don't think that we have a good understanding of how the brain works yet. So I think that the human brain is probably orders of magnitude more powerful than we think yet. And it's really interesting to design software that takes into account the things that we do know about the brain and psychology. So, for example, humans are so much more interesting to people than anything else, right? There are whole parts of the brain that are just totally tuned towards processing like emotions. There's a whole part of the visual cortex that's tuned towards processing facial expressions. Right? Like our ability to understand and process someone's face is so much more rich than our ability to look at like a podium and differentiate it from other podiums. But if you think about it, like the facial expressions that people make are like so micro, but mean such different things depending on if you move your eyebrows a millimeter in one of two directions. And I don't know, I think that that's something that we often overlook in designing products, and that's one of the things that I'm just really interested in with Facebook, is I think people are so interesting to other people. If you can build a product where people can go and learn about the people around them and share information and stay connected with people, then that's something that's super important to people. And I don't know, I guess that's probably the most thing that I took away. But in terms of like real lessons, I mean, I don't know, there's a lot more that we need to learn about the brain.
Okay.